don't worry. The movie script will be much better than what we saw out at Atlanta. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered's post-game show. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson. Breaking down everything that we saw out at Atlanta. Because Texas, while they may have been the favorites, they weren't the victors. 22-19 final score. Real quickly, make sure that you like the video, hit that ring notification down below, and smash the subscribe button because we're talking everything about college football. The playoffs are tomorrow. We get to break down the matchups. More importantly, we get to break down bowl games. We got transfer portal news. We got a coaching search now going on in the SEC. Regardless of what you see fit, make sure that you like this video and smash that ring notification. Plus, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on the socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Make sure that you download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow Dave at Mock 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. This postgame show is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the official sponsor of the SEC Unfiltered Tour. We crowned off our achievement by going to Atlanta today. We were at 15 different locations, and the only reason we were able to do so is with Prize Picks. And so Prize Picks wants you to go visit them at prizepicks.com. Use that promo code SECU at sign up for a $50 instant play when you play your first $5 lineup. More importantly, this is the #1 fantasy sports game for you these days, and it's not just for football, it's for college basketball. You can bet over under lines in terms of how many passing yards, points per game, rebounds per contest, whatever you see fit. Just go to prizepicks.com, the #1 fantasy app in all of sports. Use the promo code SECU at sign up to get a $50 instant play with your first $5 lineup. Dave, I'm not gonna lie, Hollywood could not write a better script than this. You felt like this was a moment to where Texas was going to take over. In comes the heir apparent of Carson Beck. They were able to rattle their way back. They find a way to send this game into overtime. Here comes Quinn Ewers, back and forth blows. You're able to go find your way to get your kicker to get redemption. And lo and behold, the hit heard around the world leads to Carson Beck, number 15, with an arm dangling from the side, basically praying to God that it doesn't fall off.
Only to come back in.
Handing the ball off to the man who single-handedly took down Texas on the 40 acres, #1 in your heart, #1 on the field, Trevor Etienne, guaranteeing Georgia is going to be a top 2 seed in the college football playoff. They're going to get a first-round bye, and they're going to be able to now control their pathway to a national championship underneath Kirby Smart once more.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It did. You couldn't have planned out a movie script. You said it best, Bear. I agree. I mean, it's probably the best summarization of it. Like, it had its ebbs and flows. You had not taken advantage of situations. You had Georgia just hanging around. You had quarterback injuries. You had somebody – finally, the backup quarterback curse Georgia does to somebody else. Like you said, again, to the movie script, Gunnar Stockton coming in. Gunnar Stockton, I remember him briefly recruiting him, but he was like a baby then. Like, his post-game interview was awesome until Holly Rowe interrupted him in the middle of it. She just got him all – just seemed like a good old country guy. You're right. I mean, a little sloppy at times, but, man, I mean, I think – yeah, I'm pretty sure they may have said it on the broadcast. I'm going off the top of that had to be the first overtime SEC championship game.
I think it was the first. It was the very.
There wasn't even.
I'm pretty sure it was the first one, and it's what's really funny is that Georgia finds a way to make themselves interesting in these matchups. Because remember back in 2019 when they faced off against Alabama, and it was the hit heard around the world of Devonta Smith for the touchdown pass from Tua Tagovailoa. So I mean, once again. This is the way it goes. 2018, my apologies. Dave, what I thought was really interesting in this game is that Georgia, once again, questions in the first half offensively. And this has been a trend against Power 4 opponents. Going into today, Georgia, 110 points in the first half compared to 175 in the second. They were held out. They did a great job of sniffing plays left and right. Texas's defense was balling on out. They were creating missed opportunities. They weren't allowing Georgia to capitalize on points. They were holding them behind the sticks. They took away the run game. This was really a game that I figured in the second half was going to be decided by which team was able to utilize its ground game more. And lo and behold, once you got Gunnar Stockton in the game, you had to put an emphasis on what you had in Nate Frazier. You had to put an emphasis on Trevor Etienne. It worked, but that hit. I mean, when you watch as Trey Moore comes on in and the elbow, you can just sense it right then and there. Good God, this is the moment where things turn the corner. And it kind of felt like we heard the joke. Naturally, we were talking about it in the group chat. Everyone was talking about this. Well, Florida State last year had to go through this kind of similar problem as well when their quarterback went out. What happens now with Gunnar Stockton? Here's the beauty of it. Number one, it's a 12-team playoff. They were never going to be left out because you can't decide on 4 teams. Number two, and probably more importantly, Gunnar Stockton did his job. I mean, he showed enough in the second half to trust his offense. He got a couple of explosive plays. He was able to connect with Arian Smith. He was able to connect with Ben Jurasik. Oscar Delp stepped up on really big. They got their way into the red zone to be able to take advantage with the rushing attack. Like, you can't deny at this point, Georgia played a 4-quarter game, found a way to come back in. And then once they delivered a performance that they were able to capitalize on, it came down to Texas to have to respond. And lo and behold, we'll get to that in a moment. But I got to give a lot of credit. Gunnar Stockton, this is a kid that last time saw the football field was in the 4th quarter against Tennessee Tech. 4th quarter. And now this man is making plays left and right. He's absolutely slinging it around the yard. He's making sure that he is making the right reads. Outside of that interception, hate to break it to you, turds from trading. Yeah, go to hell. I don't really care. I'm from Texas. He's from Alabama. So there you go. Problem solved.
No, you're right, Barrett. You got to give him credit. Gunnar Stockton, it was almost like that was the momentum they needed. It was almost like everyone kind of amplified and stepped up their game because he was coming in. He seems like a real likable kid, dude. I mean, you can tell. Yeah. You know, so like I was talking about like last night, I was texting with some friends, like Ashton Genty. I know we're an SEC channel, but I'm just quickly reading this up. Like when he busted that run in the 3rd quarter to kind of put the game away, Bear, how everyone went to him on the sideline after him was just like dapping him up and stuff. I'm like, you can tell like genuinely that kid's teammates like him. Like it's kind of like, dude, awesome, great job, dude. Like he's dapping up off the line. Kind of felt that way with Gunnar Stockton. It kind of a little bit at the end of that game. They're coming up post game. I know it's in the moment. People are emotional, but it's like you can tell they're like, man, dude works hard. You heard ETN post game. Dude works hard every day. He shows up. But man, I mean, from talking to people over there, they were work again. I don't know. Conversation for another day. I don't want to get into this. I don't know if they go win a national title with Gunnar Stockton, but I think from talking to people in that building, they've been looking for that leader kind of all year. And it's not a Carson Beck thing. He may just not everybody's a leader. It is what it is. Not everybody kind of has that in them. I don't think the team sees Carson Beck as that guy. So it's interesting when someone else stepped in meaningful minutes or meaningful snaps in the second half. It kind of lit a fire under everybody else's ass, even the other side of the football on defense.
Yeah, here's the fun part. There were rumors and speculation that maybe Georgia would go into the transfer portal to bring in another passer. Yeah, that's done. I mean, if you're not buying into Gunnar Stockton next year, regardless of who they bring in 2025 and beyond, this is your starting quarterback. He earned the right to be able to now at least start the year off as QB1 because of the physicality that he played with, the consistency that he played with. One bad throw, and it's a young gun mistake, and he's thrown it to a veteran defensive back who's been here time and time before.
And he panicked off that blitz off the edge.
And if you just get that block, we're talking about Texas as SEC champions in year 1 because Jahdae Barron is off to the races.
Now, even Sark thought he was going.
Now, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. The referee and the officiating in the first half and calls against Texas, I thought were pretty egregious. I thought there were multiple missed calls against Georgia. Here's the bottom line. If we're talking about holding calls, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. You are going to miss more holding calls than you were going to make. And so if that's the thing that you want to get called for, if you are a good enough job at being able to hide it or masquerade it, you're going to get away with it 9 times out of 10. This is not the sport for you if you want to talk about how holding cost you a game in Texas. It didn't. You were able to have a lead. You were able to have a substantial lead. I think that Georgia certainly should have gotten a couple of holding calls. But you know what? Texas should have gotten a couple more holding calls. They had 8 penalties in the first half. It could have been 11. It could have been 14. So I don't want to hear anything about officiating in the second half. It came down to the fact that Texas was unable to capitalize in the second half, and they watched as Gunnar Stockton was able to prepare. I want to turn my point to Texas real fast. How many times have we seen the multiple errors on end with this offense? Because the defense did its job. I'm sorry. Like, yes, you gave up a touchdown in the second half. Yes, you gave up 16 points in the second half. But the fact of the matter is you gave up zero in the first half. And so what more do you want to see from this offense that was unable to get done? I'm sorry. Like, multiple times we watch this. They continue to try to run the football. It wasn't working. They weren't able to get the job done because of the consistent holding calls. You watch as Quinn Ewers doing a double coverage. I mean, that first interception, I'm not going to blame it all on Ewers because the Bond should have been more physical making that play. But still, you're making error after error after error, and it just felt like you should have been up 17-3 at half, and you never were able to gain momentum.
No, yeah, it was weird, Barry. You're right. It was just like it felt like the same song and dance a little bit from the first game, didn't it? Just kind of without the turnovers. It was like the defense is sitting there like, oh my God, dude, through 6 quarters against this Georgia offense, we've couldn't have really played better. I mean, I think Jahdae Barron in the post game in the first game was like, mean, he said it nice where he didn't throw his offense on the bus, but it's kind of like, I felt like outside the scoreboard, we did everything we could. Kind of essentially just like, I don't know what else you want me to do. Kind of felt the same. And I thought the turning point, Barry, you tell me if I'm wrong. When Texas tied it up on that third down where they scored on 3rd and 3.
Yeah.
That was the momentum. That's where Uncle Mo could have hung around. And the Georgia offense goes and scores. And it's like, dang, Texas defense. It's just like in the second half, Texas's offense and defense could never put together that complementary back-to-back drive. You know what I mean? Like where the offense goes and gets the score, defense gets the stop, Texas goes and gets the ball, and they score. And it's kind of, all right, good. We're in good shape right now. It's always just like, all right, offense, good answer. Maybe we tied that thing up. And then it's defense went and gave a score. Texas throws a pick at that point with Quinn. It seemed just confuzzled all week. I'll say this, Bears, too. I'll be honest. I'm dead wrong on this. I did not think that Georgia, with the way Texas had been running the ball the last 2 weeks, would be able to hold Texas again to 1.1 yards
right.
per carry. I think that's something I was wrong in. Tip of the cap. Just almost like they have them in a little bit of a mix match. Glenn Shumate and Kirby and them kind of have Sark, and then you can tell they have them a little confuzzled to the point a little bit. Georgia struggles a little bit with mobile quarterbacks. That's not really Quinn Ewers. So overall, give Georgia defensive credit, and I think Texas just leaving a lot of meat on the bone in regards to taking the momentum when they had opportunities.
The other thing that was really important was the special teams. Bert Auburn misses 2 field goals, the fake punt in the fourth quarter. Yeah. I mean, those are just things that are in mistake. You have to correct it. And this is a problem. It's been a problem all year. And I've seen multiple people on Texas Sport Unfiltered when we fill in, when we talk to other people, when we do these podcasts, and I go through the comment section, they say that Bert Auburn is going to cost us a game. He wasn't the only reason that Texas lost today. Let's go ahead and call a spade a spade. There was the bad interception in the fourth quarter by Quinn. Your defense did its job. There was the bad interception in the first half by Quinn. You probably could have capitalized. You settled for a field goal when you probably need to get a touchdown on one drive. You weren't as aggressive. The play calling at times with the skew, but still you missed 2 field goals. You missed 2 field goals. And credit to Kirby
all year.
And credit to Kirby for understanding that in a moment like this, you're tied. Your backup quarterback is in. You're going to the playoff regardless, but why don't you make sure that you guarantee yourself a little bit more time to get healthy, being ballsy enough to go for it in your own territory with the fake punt? And Arian Smith capitalized on that beautifully. He made sure that everyone was going left.
Hey, how about little right. Bobo on the toss there?
Exactly. Bobo on the toss was fantastic. Just a critical play, and the credit that you got to give to Kirby for being willing to get that aggressive. Because here's what happens. If they get that stop, all you have to do is see them milk the clock. And we've watched as Texas defense before has given the ball back to the offense, created opportunities for this team to run and milk that clock down to where they either settle for a field goal. It's not guaranteed to come from Bert Auburn, but at least you put yourself in a good position. And the fact of the matter was, Kirby said, not today. I'm trusting Arian Smith. We're going to march down the field. We're going to walk away with at least some positive points.
Bear, I know you could say this about a lot of teams. I'm about to ask you a question. How do you think this red zone – I think they came into this game at 82nd in red zone offense when I was doing Dave Talks Ball early in the week when I was looking it up.
Who, Georgia or Texas?
Texas's offense. I think 82nd red zone offense. How much better do you think this offense is if, let's just say, again, everybody has injuries, but hypothetically C.J. Baxter doesn't get hurt and he makes it through the season?
It'd be interesting because if at least you would know that you have a consistent run game, especially after. But the crazy part is that, again, when you tell me that we watched as Trey Wisner last week was able to get over 186 yards and he was the backbone of this team. And then he's averaging 59 yards, but there's negative 39 yards against Quinn and they're averaging 1.1 yard per play. Dave, this is now the second time where Trevor Etienne scores a touchdown and it becomes the deciding factor in a matchup. And the fact that they aren't able to run the football, because last game they averaged 1.4 yards per play. So they're averaging less than 1.6 yards per attempt against this Georgia front seven. And they had a week to prepare for it. And I know that you didn't have Calvin Banks out there, but honestly, I'm not going to sit here and say that that was a problem because if Gooseby actually had a pretty decent day when it came to pass pro, most of the sack came on the interior. Cam Williams was more of a problem today than I thought Gooseby was. Trevor Gooseby was. So it's like, those are the concerns. And when you aren't able to have a rushing attack that's established, you have to trust the passing game. The passing game, you know what it is at this point. Credit where credit's due. There were some very good throws from Quinn today. I'm not going to sit here and act like that every single pass was atrocious. But I did feel like that there were multiple passes to where he was under duress. He was moving outside the pocket. I mean, there were 2 throws they just threw at the defender's feet. That way he was able to get rid of the intentional grounding and be in the same vicinity as an actual player to hit the reset button.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Quinn was all bad. I mean, 27 46, I mean, a touchdown interception. I don't think it was good either. I mean, his two
It
performances.
wasn't a good day. It wasn't a horrible day.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, went back to the red zone, man. It's just like, for whatever reason, sometimes they just get stuck in neutral. It's almost not even the red zone. It's like when they get to the 30, man, they just cannot capitalize. Again, maybe it's a little bit what we talked about preseason, but I don't know if it's me and you, but somebody else I was talking to, I want to say maybe it was you, somebody else. Anyways, dude, does Texas not having that big body possession guy when they get in the red zone kind of hurt them at the receiver spot a little bit? They're all kind of the same body types. And again, that's a conversation for another day. It's just reasons to just think about why the red zone offense at times against good teams and struggle. That game, you know what that game felt to me a little bit like offensively, at least, Bear? The Arkansas game.
Yeah, you had to trust your defense to get a critical stop, and then you had to run down the clock. But unfortunately, in this game, they weren't able to. Here's another part that's really frustrating, and I know that the audience is going to be feeling the exact same way. By the way, we have over 1,000 people watching this right now, so if you could, just like the video, hit that ring notification, and also hit subscribe to the channel. We're on the race to 20,000 subs. Why did you not go to Arch more? I mean, we talked about the design plays, and you had a good blueprint last week where Haynes King trusted his legs to be able to keep momentum moving against a front seven. And Arch on 2 plays was able to go on and make big time runs. And when he was on the field, it was substantial. You saw positive gains. So why not at least try to go ahead and get that in there? Why not at least try to go ahead and figure out a plan that could have worked where you actually knew that there was some type of momentum that at least put you in 3rd and 3? Or put you in 2nd and 4, and then it opened up the passing attack to where maybe you get Gunnar Helm more involved or DeAndre Moore more involved. But the fact is that it was so much of a reluctance for Steve Sarkisian to go to Arch Manning. And I don't know what the reasoning was, especially when you started to see as Georgia's offense was gaining momentum because of your defense had prepared for Carson Beck. They didn't prepare for Gunnar Stockton. They prepared for Quinn Ewers. I'm sure they prepared for a couple of runs when it came to Arch, but they weren't prepared for Arch to be the guy that day.
Yeah, no, you didn't really see a lot as much as Arch as you thought you would after maybe Sark and them going back and watching what Haynes King and Georgia Tech did to him last week. You thought he'd be incorporated. How many snaps? I mean, I saw he only had 5 yards rushing. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how many snaps, but it was probably less than 2.
I think he had 2 snaps.
Yeah. You know, I got Frank Nady. I'm not getting after you, dude. I'm just saying, not true. Wingo's not small. You're right. 6'2", he's not. But he right now, as a true freshman, he doesn't play like a big body possession receiver that you would need in the red zone, was my point. They just don't really have that guy. Again, it's not like a fault. I'm just saying, I think they would tell you they don't have the big possession body guy that they would like to have as well.
I think that when you, though, look at the passing game, they do have some weapons. Matthew Golden, once again, big-time day, 50-yard catch, 20.3 yards per play, 8 catches for $162. DeAndre Moore, you know, we talked about him in that one game where he dropped the deep ball pass against Florida, and it would have been a 6-touchdown record-setting day for Quinn out in Austin. Instead, he drops the ball, kind of makes up for it. Has 9 catches, 114 yards. Big touchdown grab, the 41-yard score. Puts momentum back in favor of Texas at the right time when Quinn needed a big-time drive. Like, it wasn't like they were substantially missing weapons. It just felt like that the throws that were errantly off eventually cost them drives. And it certainly cost them points to where they had to put their faith in Bert Auburn, who, again, we've talked about this all year. He has been a problem. He has not been himself in 2024. Not even remotely close.
No, yeah. What did he finish last year? I mean, was he up for the Groza Award?
I believe he was a semifinalist.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, he was really good last year, and you thought he may be the best kicker in the league going into the year. And you're right. He's just been inconsistent. But I feel like, again, I think Texas gets a lot of people give them hell for the schedule. Again, it is what it is. We'll talk about that. But I think this is really the first game they've had that opportunity where it's like, yeah, dude, you go 2. What did he end up going, Bear? 3 for 5. 3 for 5. Missed 2. But he ended up, let me give the kid credit. He made some clutch field goals too tonight.
Hey, it's
I think this was the game where it caught up to you, where it's like, yeah, man, you may miss it against Mississippi State. Probably not going to hurt you. You may miss it against an Arkansas team who's kind of erratic on the road. Game might be closer than you anticipate, but it's still not going to hurt you in the win-loss column. Today, as we saw, you make one of them, we're not going to overtime, and we're singing a different tune in this reaction.
Let's talk about the Gunnar Stockton situation, because naturally there are going to be people that bring up the Florida State joke. But what happens now that the quarterback's out? Number one, I don't care who Kirby Smart talks to. I don't care if Kirby Smart knows anything about the situation. I don't care if Kirby Smart already understands that this is going to be a done deal. Carson Beck has played his last down in Athens. You shut the hell up. You don't tell your teammates. You don't tell your coaching staff. You don't tell anybody besides the medical examiner that Carson Beck is fine. That's rule number one. You do not allow anybody to know the status of Carson Beck until your name appears. Now, by the way, let's just call a spade a spade. Doesn't matter because they clinched the SEC title. But let's just say that they did it. You don't say a damn word. Carson's fine. We knew that we had to go ahead and get prepared for the next round of the playoffs. We didn't want to risk further injuring him. And as soon as the rankings come out, you can say, oh, by the way, we had further examination. He's out for the year. Because you got to make sure that you're locked in. Yeah. You have to at this point.
So Georgia will have about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Yeah, he'll play, I'm sure. But you just kind of let people's lasting memories be him rolling out to snap the ball in the last snap for the win with his arm dangling. I'm with you, man. You don't say anything about it here. But again, they're in. They clinched the berth. But if they would have lost, you're right. It would have been some black ops. Hey, only Ron Corson, the Georgia trainer who's been there for years, him and Kirby and Carson would probably know about what's really going on.
Maybe Kirby doesn't even have to know. Maybe Carson Beck is the only person.
You're fine, Carson.
Yep, you're fine. Yeah, in my eyes, you're fine.
We put you back in that last snap, son. Yeah. Shut up.
That's why we put you back in, just to guarantee ourselves in case of anything. But still, they're going to be probably the number 2 seed. I think what could happen is if somehow.
Hold on, before you move on, question for you. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. What if Penn State beats Oregon? Who gets the 1 seed?
That's what I was about to bring up. If Penn State beats Oregon, do you feel like that at that moment you got to give it to Penn State because they would be 12-1?
It's fair.
Either way, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be the number 1 and the number 2 seed. With Texas' performance today, they only lost by 4 points. They were able to still send this game into overtime. Does that warrant a 5 seed? Let's just say that they lose. Let's say Oregon wins. Does that warrant a 5 seed?
Yeah, because you're right. If Oregon loses, they're 5.
Yeah, because they're going to be in the top 8. They're going to host a game. Nobody's doubting
that. Now you're starting to get into a conversation. What here, Barry? You got the 2 loss, but to 1 team.
Yeah,
in Texas. It's 1 team you've lost to twice. Notre Dame's in that conversation for 6, right? Ohio
probably
State
5 or 6
in that. And then probably Penn State, but I would put them in the back end of that. I think Texas, if Penn State loses to Oregon, I think Texas is going to be ranked ahead of Penn State.
The reason
I think it's really between Notre Dame, Texas, and Ohio State for that 6th spot. For that 5th spot.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because of it feels like at this moment, the 12 seed is either going to be Arizona State or it's going to be Clemson if they're able to pull it out.
Win. Yeah.
The 4 seed is going to be either Arizona State or Boise State.
Correct.
So whoever gets that 5 seed might have the easiest path toward the semifinals. And for Texas, that might be a blessing in disguise because of if they feel confident playing against either Arizona State or playing against Clemson, they maybe are able to use some trickery to start getting a little bit more involved when it comes to what you're going to have at the helm for Arch Manning plays, for Quinn Ewers plays. You can work out the kinks. You feel like that your run defense matches extremely well against a guy like Ashton Jeanty and Cam Scatterbo. That's a really good thing. Or Phil Maffa for that instance. But if you're the 6th seed, or if you're the 7th seed for God reasons, you get to host a playoff game. But now your path becomes a little bit more challenging at this point. Because of, yes, there's a scenario where we can say the SEC bias is going to come out and they get the 5 seed. But also, if they get the 7 seed, they're probably playing either Indiana or they're playing maybe it's Ohio State, maybe it's going to be Penn State, depending on how far they drop. Who knows what it's going to be? And then they're probably going to get either a rematch against Georgia if somehow they're the 3 seed. They're going to play SMU. But what if they're the 7 seed? They're 100% playing either Oregon or Georgia in the quarters. And so that seeding is a really, really big deal. And I know that people are going to say, well, they only played against one really significant team and their best win is against Texas A&M that's no longer ranked, or it's against Vanderbilt that's no longer ranked, or it's against Michigan that's no longer ranked. The crazy part is that even though we can say all those things, Texas still went to the SEC championship. And so are we going to reward them for going to that level, or are we going to put them in a more rigorous path to gain the right to be able to play in a national title?
I mean, I'd put them ahead of Notre Dame. Now, if Penn State and Oregon's kind of down to the wire, I could see where somebody's kind of like, hey, hold up here. I'll stand up. Not me personally, but someone in that room be like, I'll stand up for Penn State. I mean,
sure.
They lost a close game to Ohio State. Let's just say they lose to Oregon close. Okay, they lost in both those games twice, both those teams in close games. I could see a case for that. I think Texas gets it. I think they get a higher seed over Notre Dame, though. I think they'll still stick them there. What's your thoughts?
I would say right now, depending on how it looks out in Indianapolis, they're the 5 seed. I think Notre Dame is going to be guaranteed in at the 6th seed. Right.
I agree.
That's my thought. Now the question is going to be, do we see them move down to 7, or does Penn State move down to 7? Because think about this. They were also 2 going up into the week. So they were the number 2 team in the country. Are we going to drop them so far to where they're now at number 8 or number
for an overtime loss?
Again, because we didn't
with an overtime loss.
Just think about this for a minute. We didn't punish Georgia last week for an 8 overtime matchup against a 7-5 Georgia Tech squad. And this is a conference championship game that wasn't promised at the start of the year. And I'm not saying this because of Georgia, for my money, still is the betting favorite to win the national title if they can have a healthy Carson Beck and their defense can play well. I truly believe that. Them and Oregon are on their own trajectory right now. When those two are humming, they feel like the most complete teams in college football. Again, when they're humming, they feel completely.
You said who? Oregon and who?
Oregon and Georgia. Because it's still Georgia with Kirby Smart. Yeah. I'm not doubting Kirby Smart. That's the problem.
This may sound wild, and I'm repping the SEC on the chest and on the channel. Dude, sometimes Georgia's just offense is so clunky at times. I'm like, dude, I just think Ohio State would beat them. I don't know. Maybe I'm wild. I'm sure you're not saying I don't think on a given day Ohio State would beat Georgia. I'm not putting those words in your mouth.
No.
I would say those are still probably the best 2 teams in my mind. But dude, again, we talk about it. Everybody has holes. But no, it's here's a good question for you. Can Texas win a national title with Quinn Ewers?
Yeah. I don't think so. You're going to have design plays. Because here's the thing, going into this week, if you told me that they could win a national championship with Quinn Ewers, I would say yes, because of their defense would do enough to get the job done. Their defense did enough to get the job done tonight, and they weren't able to capitalize. You had a really bad interception in the 4th quarter. Thankfully, your defense got a stop. You were able to put points back on the board and tie the game. And there was a really good throw by Quinn. I'm going to make that abundantly clear. The pass to DeAndre Moore was his second best pass of the day. The second pass to Matthew Golden, the big one down at the red zone. Yeah. That was his best pass of the day. But you can only promise yourself now, it feels like 4 or 5 exceptional passes from your quarterback, and you have to trust your run game. And let's say you're going up against Ohio State's defensive front. That defensive line is going to create problems for Trey Wisner and for Jarrett Gibson and for Jaden Blue. It's going to create those issues. You got to be able to trust that you can throw Arch Manning in. And if Steve Sarkisian wants to go down with this team as Quinn with the starting quarterback, no questions asked, no switch up, because if there were multiple moments tonight where one drive, maybe just to throw Georgia's defense off, then you're writing your own book. That's what it is. I appreciate what Quinn Ewers has done. Quinn Ewers has earned the right to be the starting quarterback at Texas going into 2024. But there are some moments where you have to realize what's best for our team right now. Going back to the veteran quarterback or maybe throwing in the young gun that they're not prepared for. Because Gunnar Stockton came into this game. I understand he has experience learning the ins and outs, the intricacies of this offense because he's been there with Mike Bobo for years. But Arch has been there for 2 years. You had an opportunity to at least change the course just slightly. And you chose to go ahead and ride it out with Quinn. And you had a 3 and out, and you had a punt, and then you had an interception. And thank God you were able to get DeAndre Moore into the end zone on a 41-yard score. You can win a national title with this defense. Unfortunately, you also have to play offense.
Yeah, no. To answer my own question, I don't know. I hate saying this too. In one game, yes, could Quinn. Like if this was like a BCS era, and again, obviously Texas wouldn't get in at this point in the BCS era, top 2 teams. But if it was like in one game for a national title, yes, Quinn Ewers could go out and ball out and win a national championship. To go win 4 games against quality competition, it's not that Quinn doesn't have the physical ability. I just don't know at times he has just the intangibles. Like I've never been around Quinn Ewers. I don't. It's almost like sometimes if he makes a bad play, it just sits with him. You can just like body language, just see it. That it's like, yeah, dude, this kid's still just kind of reeling off the last play. Like it doesn't just like kind of roll off his shoulder and he's like, next play, dude. Every play has a life and history of its own, whatever. That's to me like one game, yes, Quinn Ewers can beat anybody. 4 games against quality competition, whether it's Arizona State, if you don't think Boise's good, whatever. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I would lean to answer. I'll put you on the spot saying yes or no. I'm going to say no too.
Let me just bring this up real fast. This offensive line has been phenomenal all year for Texas. In my money, they have been one of the best in college football when they don't play Georgia. In games against Georgia alone, they have given up 25 tackles for losses and 15 sacks.
Yeah.
I mean, 13 sacks. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem because of, unfortunately, what that does is when you see 25 TFLs, you can't run the football. When you have 13 sacks, you can't throw the football. And the offensive line has been phenomenal this year, except against Georgia. You know, like how we talk about with Georgia when it comes to beating Alabama, like it's now become Kirby's kryptonite. Doesn't matter if it's Kalen DeBoer. It doesn't matter if it's Nick Saban. It's just until he's able to get over that hump, he's always going to be known as that he can't beat Alabama. That's Texas at this point. Their offensive line got bullied. They got ragdolled. They got thrown around, especially Cam Williams. And you watch as Quinn Ewers was not smart enough to be able to get rid of the football. You watch as Quinn Ewers wasn't making the right reads at times. And ultimately, it led to either a turnover because they had to punt, or it led to him throwing into double traffic. And you had to shield your eyes and just go, oh my God, please don't let that be picked off. Like even the Ryan Wingo pass the back of the end zone, you're thrown into double coverage because it feels like you're rushed. Like that's what I'm talking about when it comes to Quinn Ewers. Like little plays like that go a long way, especially in the playoff.
I think Georgia with Glenn Shumate and Kirby Smart feel very comfortable being aggressive and being confident in those calls against quarterbacks like Quinn, like the stationary quarterbacks. Again, Quinn, we all know he can go pick up a 3rd and 7, but you're not. Sark's openly stated he didn't really like to use quarterbacks in design runs. Right, wrong, or indifferent for the most part, he doesn't.
This is a game that you had to, though. I'm sorry, it was.
And I think Quinn Ewers, they don't design any run game with it. And I get it. He would probably he would get it injured if you were consistently doing that. But I think my point being, when Kirby and Glenn Shumate play like a Jalen Milroe, who they've struggled against, they're very hesitant in bringing their pressures because they're like, my damn, if we miss him, dude, he's off for like 10 to 12 yards at least. I don't think they're concerned about, well, we know they're not concerned about that with Quinn Ewers. So I think the defense gets more aggressive, more edgy, instead of when they're playing a quarterback with mobility, they're a little bit more on their heels. So again, we know matchups make fights, dude. This is just not at this point, until Texas has a little bit more mobile quarterback that Sark will use more design stuff with when they play Georgia. And again, they go to Athens next year, so they will see each other next year. I just think this is just a matchup that goes in Georgia's favor right now with their blitzes, with their stunts and stuff, more so than their guys. Just because we know I'm not a Chaz Chambliss, fine college player. Don't really think he's a great pass rusher. It's all Georgia's stunts that get Texas offense.
How many of those plays did we watch as Cam Williams missed the stunt because of the guy went inside and Quinn Ewers was down?
And again, I think they're just confident calling that because they're like, all right, he may miss the initial guy, but somebody from the backside is going to clean this up. Whereas Jalen Milroe, if he misses the first one, that dude's out. And then you know me, I've criticized Jalen in the design run game. But specifically here, I think just Georgia's just very comfortable just calling and dialing it up against Quinn right now. And Quinn's seeing goes from different angles right now. It is what it is. Give Glenn Shumate and Kirby Smart credit right now.
I mean, if it wasn't Michael Williams, it was Jalen Walker. If it wasn't Jalen Walker, it was Warren Bridson. If it wasn't Warren Bridson, it was Smell Munden. If it wasn't Smell Munden, it was Damian Wilson. If it wasn't Damian Wilson, it was Xavier McLeod. It was literally every single person. They were making moves to where they were able to get the tackle, whether it be, mostly it was Cam Williams. It came from the right side more than it came from the left side. Cam Williams was going and he was leading onto the guy on the inside, thus allowing the guy on the outside to work his way up. You watch as Gooseby was able to do the best he can. You watch as Jalen Walker tries to get initial contact. He can't bring down Quinn. That creates a second opportunity. There comes the sack. Now we're looking at a 2nd and 16. And that was my fear in this game, was Texas was going to be living in 2nd and 11, 2nd and 14, 2nd and 15, and they were going to have to kind of show their cards. We're throwing the football. And credit's due to Georgia, because if they had that game plan wrapped up, they remembered in the first matchup, hey, even if Texas can score, because they can score, they had pop opportunities. We're going to put pressure on the interior of the offensive line by running these stunts that make the tackle move so far out that allow us to be able to win through the B gap, and Quinn Ewers is not going to be able to have that opportunity. 5 turnovers. I mean, when you really look at this game, 5 turnovers, 13 sacks, 25 tackles for losses, and 120 minutes. 11 pounds and 120 minutes of action. I mean, like, that's the story of this game. We can talk about how Quinn Ewers had multiple mistakes. Now he missed some throws. We can talk about Bert Auburn missing 2 field goals. We can talk about the fact that Gunnar Stockton has the most epic hero moment and guarantees himself as QB1 next year. But I'm going to keep coming back to the main point of emphasis. You couldn't run the football in game 1. You couldn't run the football in game 2. You gave up 13 combined sacks in 8 quarters of action. You gave up 25 tackles for losses in 8 quarters of action. And on top of that, you had 5 turnovers in these games. That's a losing formula, even when you can create those opportunities. Because much like we said, when you get Carson Beck to throw under pressure, he's going to get a turnover. Well, Carson Beck was out of this game, and you still got Gunnar Stockton to throw under pressure, and Jahdae Barron is 2 steps away from being a 75-yard scorer and an immortality in Austin, Texas, as that photo hangs inside a DKR forever. Like, that's what's going to happen. Texas is still one of the best defenses in all of college football. I'm going to stand on that. And if you tell me right now that Texas's defense wins them a national championship and they're playing in Atlanta come early January, I'm going to say I believe it, because Vernon Broughton has been phenomenal this year. Anthony Hill has been phenomenal this year. Andrew Makuba, who, by the way, do you want to talk? Can we just talk about the tackling? Can we talk about the tackle real fast? You didn't think that was targeting, did you?
No, you were talking about on the one.
The final play. The final play. Yeah.
No. Andrew Makuba was balling out. Hell, he even had, and again, you had Texas a couple of times. Barry, remember knocking some balls out and just Georgia falling right back on them.
Yeah.
I mean, so that Makuba being
Makuba made so many plays.
He did, even ones that won't show up in a box score. Like he knocked some balls out, and just unfortunately, it bounced right back up to the Georgia player that whoever was ETN at the time.
I said, well, it was I think it was Frazier that fumbled, and then
Nate Frazier did it one time. Then who was it before him?
Was it Lawson Lucky? Hold on, I'll tell you in a minute.
Tight end. But no, I mean. This thing is just Georgia has a matchup advantage right now, scheme wise, in the front seven against Texas's offensive line right now. And that's really
it was Anthony Evans. Anthony Evans fumbled.
Anthony Evans. Yeah, you're right. Anthony Evans did fumble.
But still, I mean,
Kirby was ripping his ass on the sideline.
Because think about it. I mean, Trey Moore had a big time fumble. You also had Angel McCoy. Like the defense is doing its job. I mean, they had what was it? If I'm not mistaken, I think it was 10 tackles for losses and 3 sacks on the day. That's still good enough.
Think about it too, Bear. What if Makuba catches that and takes it to the house? That one tip. That was in the first half.
What if they get one of the fumbles? Yeah. What if they just get one of the fumbles and they get momentum back and now it's a kick and now Bert Auburn makes the field goal? And again, you can't put so much of an emphasis on your kicker being the only guy when there are so many other miscues from play execution, from field position, from the inability to catch your quarterback upright. I mean, again, 13 sacks in 2 hours of play. That's an unrelentingly losing formula. It's never going to be sustainable.
I'm piggybacking off our guy, Andre Agassi's coming here. What if Texas and Georgia played again in the playoffs? What's Bear's prediction, baby? You going to 3? You trying to go 3? You going to throw 3 times at Texas into the
Do I go down swinging? No, I don't go down swinging at this point. It's hard to, because I figured this was, again, a game that I figured Quinn Ewers was going to live up to expectations because of I've seen him do it in the biggest moments. I've seen him go into the belly of the beast that is Bryant-Denny Stadium and throw 3 touchdowns as a member of the Big 12. I watched as he went against Oklahoma State last year and threw 5 touchdown passes and set a Big 12 record. I watched as he went to the Big House and he played out of his mind against Michigan. A still very good Michigan defense.
Very surgical performance.
Surgical performance. Slice and dice and making plays left and right. I watched as he trusted his offensive line and his rushing attack to make plays in the Red River Shootout. Like, I've seen Quinn be able to deliver. I saw Quinn a few years ago put up 49 points in the Red River Shootout. So it's like, I can't say that I didn't believe that Quinn couldn't get the job done. It's just he didn't today. And when you don't get the job done in a big time moment and you put such an emphasis on your rushing attack and your defense to do so much, you're kind of struggling upfield using styrofoam pads. That's what it is.
No, you're right. Overall, again, you can't blame this also the defense. I mean, if you wanted to point one blame, it goes multiple ways. Play calling on offense, the offensive line not picking up their stunts. And obviously, and I love the guy to death. Worked with him at Texas A&M, one of the best dudes I know. Jeff Banks, special teams coordinator at Texas, and they struggled tonight. They did. Fake punt. Again, sometimes it's tough to give the special coordinator the blame, the special teams coordinator the blame for missed kicks.
I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to Silas Bolden on the big 26-yard return. To be able to set them up inside a field goal tier, and the fact they missed the kick. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that. That's got to be the most souring moment for you today. That when you look at the way Silas Bolden gave you a free chance for 3 points. What more can you say? I mean, that was kind of the game plan.
Bear, what do you think? If I told you Carson Beck was out for the rest of the playoffs, chances 1 through 10, Georgia wins the national championship. With
4.
10 being they're winning it, 1, no chance.
4, because I'm not doubting Kirby Smart. And what if
4 is a fair number? I would say.
What if Gunnar Stockton is truly just getting bigger, getting better? That's all I can say. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And again, you watch this in the first. Here was the thing that I also really noticed, and I want to make sure that we close on this because of it's important. Did you notice that in the first half that there were a couple of drop passes by wide receivers? There were none in the second half. Lawson Lucky made, for my money, the catch of the day. That one code just dragging on in, staying close by the line. Ben Urosic made a big-time catch. Oscar Delp stepped up and made a big-time catch. Trevor Etienne made a couple catches out of the backfield. Arian Smith had that big 18-yard gain. They made some plays. I mean, they did a really good job being able to step on up in the second half without their quarterback, without the guy that's been working all year.
Also, to a shout out before we get out of here, dude, Warren Brinson was dominating.
He was fantastic on the line.
Yeah, the offensive line's been better for Georgia since really Tate Ratledge just came back into it. And again, I know he played against Ole Miss at the right guard spot, but really, I'd heard through Rusty Mansell, who Georgia fans will probably listen to who he is. He said he woke up with the flu that morning, but it was his first game back from tightrope that he was going to give it a go. So again, he wasn't 100%, but Georgia's offensive line has fixed some of those holes ever since Ratledge has got back into the regular lineup.
If you were to look right now at Texas's chances, let's just go through before we get on out of here, because we don't know who Georgia's going to play. They're going to go to the Peach Bowl. I mean, the Sugar Bowl. So they're going to be down in New Orleans. So no worries about that. But if you were to look, no, they will be in New Orleans, right? Or
yeah, that's the closest proximity quarterfinal game. Or quarterfinal game.
It's that one. It's not the Peach Bowl. It's not Atlanta.
No, the Peach Bowl is the national championship.
Okay, so that's the national championship. Okay, yeah. So if you were to look at Texas right now, would you think that they would beat SMU?
Yes.
All right. Do you think that they would beat Clemson?
Yes.
Do you think that they would beat Arizona State?
Yes.
Do you believe they would beat Boise State?
Yes.
Do you believe that they would beat Alabama?
Yes.
That's where the conversation goes. Because those are the teams that they're going to probably be facing off against. They're not going to go against Tennessee. Oh, I guess one more. Indiana.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we all feel like if Texas were to get one of those seeds against that matchup, they would still find a way to win. The question is, do you feel like that they can go toe-to-toe with the way this offense?
But the only team there, Bear, I think they would win the game. But I'll say this, both of mine and your alma mater will be the game out of those group of teams that would be like, yeah, would it shock me if Alabama?
If you told me that Alabama,
but if you made me bet them, if Cole Thompson was like, "Here's $1 million, Dave, you got to bet it on Bama or Texas in one game."
Oh, I bet it on Texas.
Yeah.
I bet on Texas. There's too many inconsistencies with how this offense looked. I think, honestly, the team that I'd worry the most about would be probably Clemson, just because of, for some reason, I feel like that offensive line would do a great job.
Clemson would do anything offensively against Texas at all.
I don't think. I think that they would do just enough. Like, that would be my concern. Yeah. It would be a field goal game, and at the end of the day, the field goals for Texas are just missed. Bert Auburn just goes wide left, wide right. But still, I'd have no doubt about that. For Georgia, they're in the playoff. They're probably going to be a 2 seed. Credit where credit's due. They played a phenomenal game. They rallied the troops. The fact that everyone kind of stepped on up and was able to deliver their assignments, the fact that they had such great protection for most of the second half for Gunnar Stockton, outside the really, really bad pressure throw that he made to Jahdae Barron, it was a good, clean performance in the offensive line. Yes, the run game was silenced at times, but they also saw as Nate Frazier had a couple of big runs. They saw as Trevor Etienne had a couple of big runs. Your defense was able to create opportunities for your offense to capitalize in their own territory. I think that this is, again, why you can't doubt Kirby Smart. And how funny was it that we see as the lights are going down and Holly Rowe is interviewing him again, and there is the face of death staring you right in the eyes and going, don't mess with us on a Saturday because you're going to knock your ass out.
Yeah, no. You see him take the shot at Greg Sankey at the presser. I didn't see it. I saw someone posted on Twitter, him saying about the I guess Sankey handed him the trophy, and he was essentially just saying, yeah, I mean, Sankey essentially saying Sankey gave Texas an easy schedule and put Georgia on the road a lot more than everybody else. The team's going off a bye week or something.
We could say the same thing about that last year. So I don't really want to hear about scheduling. It's not your own fault.
Georgia did have an easy schedule last year. You all right?
Before we get on out of here, I just would like to say to everybody that watches, we have over 1,200 people watching right now. Make sure that you like the video and hit that ring notification. But I'm tired of hearing that conference championship weekend doesn't matter, because that game mattered to Georgia. You watch, because they could have just phoned it in with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. They're in the playoff. They're going to be good. They're probably not going to host a playoff game, but so be it. They're in the playoff. That game mattered to Texas. They were going to make sure that they were delivering because they were tired of hearing the doubters. And everybody inside that building made sure that that game was pinnacle, frontline center. We're going to be talking about an overtime matchup. Go look at what happened out in Arlington today. I love Arizona State. They're phenomenal. They're a great team. They got the best vibes in college football. But that game was over in the third quarter. Look at what's going on in Indianapolis right now. Look at what's going on in Charlotte right now. Don't kid yourself when you say that conference championships, number one, do not matter because there are no quote unquote playoff implications on the line. And number two, if you ever find somebody going out of their way to say, well, the conference championships are just dumb at this point, take them to Mercedes-Benz Stadium on a Saturday afternoon and make sure that they sit down for 4 quarters and understand what this game is between two teams led by former Nick Saban disciples who understood the assignment. What matters most in the southeastern region is being able to claim that you are the finest.
No, I totally agree with you, Bear.
Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. And real quickly, hit that ring notification. You probably ask yourself, why hit that ring notification? Well, because of tomorrow, we have multiple live streams going on talking about the college football playoff actual selection show. And then the bowl eligibility. What are going to be the best bowl matchups? Who's going to get snubbed? Looking at what we see right now, is there a scenario where we're going to watch as Alabama is catapulted out of the college football playoff? What happens at this point when it comes to the status of Carson Beck? Will we know by tomorrow morning? The only way to know is by guaranteeing that you hit that ring notification so you get to keep up to date with everything that we do on this channel. Follow Dave at Mock 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson. Check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. Georgia, you're still the kings of college football in my mind. In Texas, you got a lot of things to clean up if you want to win a national championship. See you in the morning. Peace.